Let me just say, when your campaign is going smoothly, when you're able to display a mastery of the issues, when you have an agenda that you're comfortable promoting, you don't need to resort to this.
This is fun. I could do this all day. I wouldn't mind this job. I like this job. I think I might come back and do it again.
Thank you.
Look at that. Look at that. How are you?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Nice to see you. Hi, darling. How are you?
You made it possible for ordinary people like us to meet you.
You're not ordinary.
I mean, thank you so much.
You are not ordinary. I can see.
We pray for you.
Thank you.
And you are the type of person we want to be the president.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
So nice. Thank you very much. Yeah, I took a bullet. That's right.
Thank you, Mr. President.
When you think about it, I guess that's right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Here's the letter McDonald's posted outside the franchise in Feasterville, Pennsylvania, verifying that it was closed to the public at the time of Trump's visit. According to a person familiar with the event, the customers who went through the drive-thru were pre-selected by the franchise and the local Trump campaign team. And look, it goes without saying that Trump pretending to be a drive-thru employee to people pretending to be customers as he pretends to be some champion for the working class is the perfect metaphor for the phoniness of this campaign. The fact that it got so much attention isn't a testament to its effectiveness, it is the opposite. It's owed to the fact that Trump is so not that guy that seeing him wear an apron becomes a spectacle. All it did was highlight just how out of place he looked. The reality is that we have been here before, where this billionaire who has a literal gold-plated tower presents himself as some working-class hero. And let's ignore the fact that he's made his wealth on the backs of contractors and workers who have sued him, claiming he refused to pay them. You actually don't have to look beyond what he did in his own White House. Trump had the opportunity to defend his populist bona fides, and yet, what did he do when it came time to actually use his political capital? He passed a tax cut for millionaires and billionaires. That's it. That is the only significant piece of legislation that he bothered passing. No promised jobs boom, no promised manufacturing boom, no promised infrastructure upgrade, no promised healthcare plan that was more affordable and more comprehensive. That was just a shiny distraction to suck votes out of the rubes. But when it came time to actually walk the walk, did he deliver for the working class, the elderly, the sick, the coal miners, the auto workers? Not at all. He helped himself and the billionaire class. And the only thing worse than people having fallen for this scam back in 2016 is people seeing what a con artist he was and yet opting to believe him again. In fact, it's worse than that, because not only did Donald Trump do nothing to help his overwhelmingly white working class base who have been groomed into thinking that a narcissist billionaire obsessed with hoarding his fortune is looking out for them, but he's actually exploiting them for his own political gain. These people, these working class Americans, are who Trump pits against any vulnerable group he can think of, and pointing to those people as the cause of everybody's problems. And so he'll vilify immigrants and the LGBT community and the poor, anyone so that his base doesn't see the real villains of this story. Trump and Republicans, the very people responsible for the dire state of the working class in this country. You see, Trump and Republicans understand that so long as they can pit white working class Americans against immigrants, or gay people, or women, or liberals, that no one will pay attention to the wealthy politicians who are benefiting from their votes, all the while passing policies that only benefit themselves. Let's put it plainly. It is not the fault of immigrants that the minimum wage has not been raised since 2009. It is not the fault of immigrants that the largest tax cut overwhelmingly favored millionaires and billionaires. It is not the fault of immigrants that we have the most expensive healthcare system in the world. Those are policy choices decided on by Republicans who recognize that those policies are unpopular and yet throw vulnerable communities under the bus as scapegoats to give themselves cover. Meaning, not only are they doing nothing about helping their working class base, they are lying to them as well. Need an actual example? Take a look at what Donald Trump said when he was asked during this McDonald's stunt his stance on raising the minimum wage.
Well, I think these people work hard, they're great, and I just saw something, a process that's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to see. These are great franchises and produce a lot of jobs, and it's great. And great people working here too.
Talk about a dodge. He was asked point blank if he supports raising the minimum wage, which would presumably help those very working class people he panders to, and yet he is so aggressively anti-worker that all he can conjure up was some BS about, quote, a process that was beautiful. I've never heard more words mean absolutely nothing. Here's what Kamala Harris had to say in response to that.
My opponent, Donald Trump, does not believe we should raise minimum wage. And I think everyone knows that the current federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour, which means that the person who is working a full day and working full weeks will make $15,000 a year, which is essentially poverty wages. So there is a big difference between Donald Trump and me on a number of issues, including this, where I absolutely believe we must raise minimum wage and that hardworking Americans, whether they're working at McDonald's or anywhere else, should have at least the ability to be able to take care of their family and take care of themselves in a way that allows them to actually be able to sustain their needs.
So with Trump cosplaying yet again as a populist, who do you trust more? The guy whose populism is so false that the mere image of him wearing an apron garnered national headlines? The guy whose populism is so false that he didn't lift a finger for the working class when he had full control of government? Or do you trust Kamala Harris, whose career was dedicated to fighting for regular people, who will continue the work of the Biden administration in making prescription drugs cheaper, in making out-of-pocket costs cheaper, in eliminating junk fees at banks, in lowering the price of inhalers, and mandating that airlines give automatic refunds for canceled flights, and implementing click-to-cancel for subscriptions, and getting broadband to rural Americans? Kamala Harris has put into action what Donald Trump uses to campaign. So if you're looking for action, Harris is your candidate. But if you're looking for talk and bluster, well, there's a candidate for that too. Before you go, to see more content from MSNBC, make sure to subscribe to this channel by clicking the link right here on this screen. And you can also follow the link to see some exclusive content only on TikTok.